Hi, all. Kinsey Schofield here, and I am with Kate Mansey, the royal editor of the Times. You're also the assistant editor, but today you're my royal guru. So I hope you don't mind that that's where you shine for me. I love following you on Instagram.
Thank you.
You've got a lot of
Likewise.
You've got a lot of pretty amazing access when it comes to the British royal family.
Yes, I think that's a part of being part of the Royal Rota and the day job. I mean, you mentioned being assistant editor and royal editor. It's been such a busy beat that has completely taken over my day-to-day, every night, every morning, and the travel, of course. And people just love to see, the pictures, if you're there with the members of the royal family. Sometimes it's those little interactions that you see between a member of the public and, member of the British royal family that actually, to me, it informs my writing because it tells you something about how they really are. They're not standing up delivering a speech. They're not, in a way, sort of on display. It's a more kind of genuine and human interaction. And actually, that tells you far more sometimes about what they're like, what they're all about, than some of the kind of official, duties that we see them doing with the pomp and pageantry.
Right. Well, that's why I love what you do on social media, because you do manage somehow to capture these almost like sacred moments.
It's very kind.
You're welcome. So there's this great moment that you posted within the last 2 weeks. It's Prince William, and you really see how charming and witty he is in Rio. So your boats are kind of lingering next to each other, and he looks at you guys and he said, "Could we be any closer?"
It was his Chandler from Friends moment. Could we be any closer? Yeah.
And, when you see moments like that, he's just so choreographed in his role. Do you catch him off the cuff as often as we know about, or do you actually get to see him relaxed more so than we probably see him?
Yeah, I think it's those sort of interactions that show you what he's like when he is relaxed. So on that occasion, he was in Rio, and I was in Rio for his Earthshot week. And then he went off to an island to see a bit of island life. Mm-hmm. And as part of that, he took this small boat down to see the mangroves. And it was about an hour-long journey down through the river to go and see where the mangroves are being planted, essentially. And it's really important because, particularly for him, looking at his environmental campaigning, he's talking about how if you grow mangroves, they're going to take more carbon out of the atmosphere than anything else, really, to be able to plant those trees and to do that.
Yeah.
So he wanted to go and show where this forest was being made and plant a few himself. So it's such a kind of typical royal engagement to plant a tree, but being in the mangroves, in Brazil, out of Rio, had a little twist on it. Mm-hmm. And then as our boats got quite close, we were there for ages before his driver was able to kind of back out. And he was quite awkward because, there's sort of cameras on him. And it always amazes me about William that he still does blush in front of the cameras. All these years that he's been in the public eye, he doesn't really enjoy it.
Yeah.
He isn't a show-off.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't like being the centre of attention. Actually, he's quite shy.
Right.
And it's hard for people to realise that. But these kind of moments, and he's quite clever as well. He's witty, like his grandmother, the late Queen, very witty. And he uses humour to deflect,
right.
Sometimes being quite uncomfortable in those situations. And that's exactly what he did in that clip. He said, it was quite awkward. And at one point I sort of put my camera away, my mobile phone away, because we're so close and just sort of having a bit of a chat. And then, there's quite a good shot. So to be able to get that was really interesting because again, this is classic William, not being very comfortable in front of the camera, being quite close to journalists, which does make him slightly anxious.
Right.
And then using his wit and his humour and his genuine charm, I have to say, he is genuinely very charming, to deflect, sometimes feeling uncomfortable, with a bit of a joke.
Oh my gosh.
And it just worked.
It
you
does.
can see, rather than getting shirty about it and being agitated or a bit grumpy,
right.
it was sort of perfect thing to do, really.
Mm-hmm. He did. It could have been terribly awkward and quiet, and you could have been like, I want to be anywhere but here. But that all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, we're friends. We're all friends here. This isn't necessarily a terrible situation.
Yeah, and let's remember, we went there following him. We've been invited to see
Yes.
some of the good work that he's doing. So I think he does recognise that it's important for journalists to see that work. And, we interviewed the people who were working there as part of that project. So
Well,
I think he appreciates that, actually.
I love the idea that you were there with him, and it's this entire experience where, I mean, I think you just said you were an hour on a boat going out to see this. You're much more invested in the story when he takes you along the way versus him coming back and going, here's what we did today, guys. Or his, press secretary, here's what we did today, just so you know, but you are seeing the experience for yourself. So now you're kind of curious and you're asking yourself internally some questions about the process. And now the Earthshot might be a little bit more truly meaningful for you, or to see the way the Earthshot evolves, because you've been along for the ride.
Yeah, that's a really smart way of looking at it, because I think must be so tempting for Kensington Palace to stage manage something like that, do their own videos, and then just pump it out later for us to kind of write around the pictures that they supply. But it is really important, I think, to bring the public along in the form of the press for us to see, face to face what William's doing, the type of work he's doing, the way in which he's doing it, and gives you a much better insight, into what he's like as a person. And nowadays, we talk about, people being their authentic selves online and things like that. Would Kensington Palace have included that clip? I'm not sure they would have done, but it tells you so much about the man. It tells you about the person. And actually, there have been stage managed videos. So, and for good reason, I have to say. So he went to Wales recently to interview a woman who had lost her husband from suicide. And it was desperately tragic story that her husband had taken his own life weeks after their baby son had died. Now, that was such an awful story. You can totally understand why they wouldn't want journalists around that kitchen table while they were having that conversation. Kensington Palace filmed it, and then they later put out the video. And actually, there's a moment in which William looks away. He looks like he's about to cry. There's certainly tears in his eyes. He's completely moved and devastated by this story he's hearing over the kitchen table. And Kensington Palace said to me, we asked the Prince, shall we take that section out where you start to cry? And he said, no. Keep it in. And actually, that's interesting. There's editing processes going on, and there are engagements, and there are times when Kensington Palace will stage manage it, do it themselves. But I think it's so important, where possible, that journalists can be there and we can, feed back and tell you what he's really like.
Yeah. I also think from a branding perspective, it's with social media the way it is, and everybody's creating content. We're all chasing hits and likes and views. That Kensington Palace does have content that they're creating exclusively, so that there's some value in following them ourselves versus, just following a newspaper. I mean, I think that it gives them a little bit of power. But thank you for sharing that story. I didn't know that he allowed that to be left in. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting that was a conversation that actually the aides thought, let's take that out. We better ask him. And he said no. Yeah. No. And I loved that video. I was incredibly moved by that video. So I was okay. I was thinking, this is so touching. I was okay right up until the point then he lost it. And then I lost it too.
I know.
Anyway, you just feel for that woman. It's so sad.
You do. Hey guys, this holiday, while others are chasing the rush, find your sense of calm with Peak. Peak is a luxury wellness brand powered by rare plants and cutting-edge ingredients, offering the perfect remedy for the season's hustle and bustle. Their science-backed botanicals, minerals, and vitamins support metabolic function, immune health, sustained energy, and radiant skin. In this festive season, choose serenity as the ultimate luxury with Peak. One of their newest essentials, the Deep Hydration Protocol, is a day-to-night electrolyte system that keeps your body and skin hydrated while promoting better sleep. Made without sugar, fillers, or artificial flavors, and crafted with natural ingredients for a clean, spa-like taste you can feel good about. Daily use supports hydration, glowing skin, improved sleep, and sustained energy. I personally love to start my day with BT Fountain. This is their beauty electrolyte. The multitasker your beauty routine has been missing. BT Fountain floods your system with hydration, leaving your skin as bright as your Christmas tree. Bonus, it keeps my energy high long after the coffee buzz fades. Feel the holiday magic and unlock your healthiest glow with the most exciting offer of the season, 20% off site-wide for life, plus a complimentary exclusive holiday bundle. Go to peaklife.com/Kinsey. That's PIQUE life.com/Kinsey. This is hydration redefined. Try it and glow from the inside out. I'll be honest, I feel like there were a few years where there was just so much drama, unnecessary drama, that the stigma around Prince William was that he was an angry person, or that he was not a welcoming person, not an approachable person. And through following people like you and through some of the content that Kensington's released, we do see that he's animated. I hear a lot about how funny his mother was, and the silly cards she would send him when he was a teenager. And I think he probably gets some of his sense of humor from her, as well as the Queen. But I have really seen a different side of him, and I'd say the last 24 months.
Yeah, interesting.
Much more accessible. And how much do you think that could have to do with Catherine's cancer, and maybe just softening, because his world was rocked over the last few years between the king and Catherine, and just kind of realizing some of this stuff is just not worth dwelling on. I've had real issues over the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. It puts it into perspective. You don't sweat the small stuff, as they say. But I would go further than that. I think there's 2 points. I think you're absolutely right to say the cancer has changed him like it would change anybody, to go through that, to take a step back and consider the bigger picture of life, what it means, what family means, to live in the here and now, and to appreciate everything that you've got. But I think a second point as well, we've seen him become more open since he became Prince of Wales, which we all talked about, the transition from the Queen to King Charles. And that was the big talk, wasn't it? How the reign would change, the crown passing after over 70 years to a new king. And while that was going on, no one was looking at William, who had a huge promotion to Prince of Wales. Now, that is a big step up.
Right.
And I don't think many people, and perhaps even the media, didn't even really appreciate that. But I think that was the start of him saying, okay, I'm heir to the throne. I'm going to be standing in much more as head of state for Dad when he can't do it. And I think I've seen him being much more open since then as well. It's like he's gone, okay, the public needs to know what they're letting themselves in for with me now that I'm the Prince of Wales. So I think there was an opening of the door with that. And then we saw, obviously, Catherine's cancer diagnosis, her chemotherapy, and we are seeing a new William. Absolutely. He's much more open. He's much more kind of honest about his feelings. He's happy to be vulnerable. And I think it just shows a way in which he's grown as a person and grown in his role as well.
Yeah, you're right. I think his role is really important. He's embracing that responsibility. He's proud of it. He's proud of the family, proud of the role. Now, oh gosh, this picture was incredible. You write, Prince William travels in his mother's footsteps. Princess Diana was here in 1991. Now, 34 years on, an incredible moment and such a privilege to visit Christ the Redeemer before it's open to the public. A Kensington Palace spokesperson talked to you, and they were just kind of saying to the media pack, the prince has loved meeting so many people from across Rio over the last few days. He's been incredibly struck by the number of people who fondly remember his mother's visit. This seems like a rare moment where Prince William intentionally evokes the memory of his mother. I feel like there's another brother that does that far more often and far more on purpose. But does it seem to you like Prince William is more selective about when he brings up his mother?
Yes, I think he is. I think that's a really good point, that he does. Obviously, her memory lives with him. He thinks about her every day, he said in the past. But we don't always hear him talk about it. He doesn't leverage it for publicity at all. Or very rarely do we even see him talk about his mother. But when he does, my goodness, it packs a punch. And that's very deliberate. You don't really get Kensington Palace spokespeople going on the record to say, this is deliberate. He's thinking about his mother while he's here. He's talking about his mother while he's here. And then we had him recreate 2 pictures, actually, which were her standing on the lookout for Christ the Redeemer, looking down across the rest of Rio. You could see Sugarloaf Mountain in the background, which is, of course, where he started his week in Rio. He went to receive the key to the city from the mayor there at the start. And then he was looking down across the whole thing. And he took a moment just to have a kind of look out and just take stock. And when he turned around, he looked quite moved and quite emotional, because he's obviously been thinking, this is where Mum was, when she was there in the 1990s with Charles. And interestingly, that was a moment that she did on her own. And
Right.
Prince Charles was doing engagements elsewhere. A year later, we had that famous picture, didn't we, at the Taj Mahal in India, where Diana was sitting on her own. And these were the signs for anyone looking for them, that relationship, was not
Fractured,
going to last. Then we saw William come back and stand in front of Christ the Redeemer, and he looked proud. He has his hands clasped in front of him in the same way that his mother did. And it was a really important and interesting moment. And sometimes we forget that, William is always living with that loss. But it's those moments, I think, that bring it to the fore. And when he deliberately, talks about it through his spokesperson, then I think that's really special.
There are, as I'm sure you know, rumors about this conflict between the king and Prince William. I'm sorry, I almost said Prince Charles. But when I see Kensington Palace so willing to mention Princess Diana, to me, that's an example of unity within the whole space, that the king is okay with us bringing up the ex-wife, that, Prince William's mother. I guess I appreciate little signs like that, because if there was any tension, I imagine that especially so early in the king's reign, they would probably not want Princess Diana to be mentioned. Or am I just being very cynical?
No, it's a really interesting point. And I've never picked that up from Charles's side, that, we mustn't mention Diana. Because I think he feels desperately sad as a father that his two sons lost their mother. And I don't think, he would ever stop either of them talking about her, mentioning her, paying tribute to her, unveiling a statue as they did in Kensington Gardens to her.
Right.
And I know there's a new book out now about the Panorama interview that she did with Martin Bashir in 1995. And I think that is interesting, and it's something that I think the king will read, or certainly his close aides will read and feed back to him, because I don't think he feels in any way that it's putting him out at all. I think there's a lot of kind of love and appreciation for the boys and what they've been through on that front. So I don't think he would ever begrudge them that.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I know, because I feel like time does typically heal all wounds, but I don't know why it's with this story. You look at the way that the Crown has made the Crown makes it look so much more dramatic, and like there's so much more hate involved. One of my favorite stories is from Richard Kay, and I'm so sorry to everybody who's heard me say this 1,000 times, but Prince Charles at the time, needing to use the loo, stopping at Kensington Palace in the helicopter, asking Princess Diana, "Can I use your restroom?" and then runs in to use the restroom. As he's walking out, she chases him out and says, "Same time next week," like with a wink, like as if this was some sort of secret meeting, even though he just needed to use the restroom. But you get the sense that towards the end of her life, post-divorce, they actually were friends, and they were developing a very positive relationship, whether it was co-parenting or just to support the monarchy. It did seem like they were friendly towards the end of her life. And for some reason, maybe it's pop culture or just to sell books, there are people that don't like that narrative. But to hear you say, no, why would he ever discourage his sons from remembering their mother? I guess from an American perspective, gives me a lot of peace.
Yeah, and if you look at the timescale, so if they separated in 1992, the divorce was finalised in 1996. That's a very long time to kind of come to terms with that marriage breaking down. Perhaps not long term in someone's life. 4 years can pass quite quickly. Mm-hmm. But there was that time, and the divorce was finalised in 1996, the year before she died. Mm. And I think there was time for them both to come to terms with it in their own way.
Yeah, absolutely. So a royal greeting from Prince William at Earthshot. How often do you see celebrities melt in front of working royals? You have this great red carpet, green carpet coverage of Kylie Minogue and Shawn Mendes, and it's interesting to see people that are so well established in the celebrity space actually like in awe of someone.
This is one of my favourite parts of the job, actually, is to see the reaction to people, whether it's a member of the public or a celebrity, meet a member of the royal family, but particularly the celebrities, they turn to jelly. So, for example, Victoria Beckham, at one stage, she was sort of very, very nervous when she was meeting the Queen, and you think, you're Victoria Beckham, for goodness sake, you're a huge star. But they get very nervous, and they're waiting in the lineup, and they start kind of fiddling with their clothes and kind of brushing themselves down, and it's hilarious. And Kylie was brilliant. I mean, look at, she's such a mega star. And she came back to the waiting area to wait for the prince to come down, and she actually accidentally got caught on kind of live TV on Sky News, it was. And they sort of go, oh, Kylie, you're here. And she was, I didn't know where to go. And she was great. And then, her and Shawn Mendes meeting the prince. And I used to explain it with the late Queen. When she'd go along, I would stand sometimes behind the Queen just to see people's faces properly as they met her, and it was like a little light bulb going on. They sort of perk up as she went along the line. And it's the same for William. William has this charisma that you can't explain unless you've been in a room with him, that he really, really does. He walks in the room and you feel it. You feel the atmosphere change. And that's not me, kind of bigging him up or anything. He just does carry that with him. And the celebrities feel that as well. It's really fun to see. And I probably shouldn't name the names, but the big Hollywood A-listers kind of giggling and being really nervous in front of him, and you think, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
they're starstruck.
It's so sweet to see. Sorry to keep going back to Princess Diana, but Diana taking the boys to movie sets, and then Tom Cruise wanting to continue that relationship specifically. I mean, he seems very close to Prince William and Catherine, and very supportive of them. Oh, you got a little Tom Cruise shout out. Yeah.
We've got a little video in the Earthshot Prize ceremony on the Wednesday night in Rio. He popped up on screen. That was a nice surprise for everybody.
So fun. But I do wonder what kind of, do you feel good about yourself knowing that, it sounds like Prince William would be a little embarrassed by it, but does that feel good to know that just your presence or meeting you will make somebody's day, make somebody's life? I mean, that's a superpower. It's a superpower.
It's a great question for them, isn't it? That someone should ask. That it is, and it's just, I suppose
it's a treat. Like an unbelievable treat.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. No, you got to see this transition, because quickly after Earthshot, you're packing your bags and heading to COP30. Obviously, he's the boss at Earthshot, but at an event like COP, where you're in a room full of environmental influencers and movers and shakers, did his posture change, or did you continue to feel his confidence in that arena? Yeah,
so it's interesting. We went from kind of him being kind of host to him being kind of just part of the party at COP. And it was the Leaders Summit. So it was a few days before COP, the UN Conference Climate Change Summit started properly, which was on the Monday. But ahead of that, we had William speaking, we had Sir Keir Starmer, UK Prime Minister, speaking, we had President Lula speaking. And I think it was a kind of dry run for the real thing, if you like. It was really interesting because still part of the building was being created. They still hadn't finished some of it, not the bit where William was, but other bits. So it was not quite what you're perhaps used to walking into as Prince of Wales. That said, I think he handled it really, really well. And he got on stage and had that kind of gravitas and to deliver what was actually quite a long speech, and actually quite a brave speech, because he was backing a scheme, which is a financial scheme to fund a tropical rainforest recovery, essentially, within Brazil and elsewhere within the Amazon rainforest. And that's a scheme that had been shortlisted on his Earthshot Prize, and it's a scheme that the British government had decided that they didn't have the funds to invest in. So that's another matter. But he was quite bold in saying that he supported that. So he stood up and delivered a brilliant speech, but it wasn't his arena as such. But I think those things play very, very well around the world, and it's absolutely the right thing he should be doing. It's the first time he's done that as a kind of keynote speaker at COP, something his father has done year in, year out for obviously decades. So following in his father's footsteps in that respect. And I know he shared his speech. Members of the palace said that he'd shared his speech with his father before he delivered it.
Sweet.
And he had also shared it with Sir Keir Starmer. So he actually travelled up from Rio to Belém. It's like a 3.5-hour plane journey with the Prime Minister. So to have been a fly on the wall would be very, very interesting. I think he was mostly concentrating on his speech. They released a picture afterwards of him looking very much the statesman, with his speech and his pen out, making last-minute changes. So.
Hey, Unfiltered fam, some breaking news just for you. Beam's cyber sale is now live for our listeners, and it's their best offer of the year, but only for 48 hours. Right now, friends of the show get up to 50% off, and with my code Kinsey, you can grab Dream for just $32.50. That breaks down to only $1.08 per night for the best sleep of your life. Go to shopbeam.com/Kinsey. Use my code Kinsey and don't miss out. This is the lowest price Dream has ever been sold anywhere and will likely sell out quickly. Dream is packed with ingredients your body actually needs to sleep: reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, and yes, even melatonin, but dosed intelligently, not like the drugstore garbage that knocks you out and leaves you groggy. So now's the time. Beam is giving our community the ultimate royal discount. Go to shopbeam.com/Kinsey, use code Kinsey, and get up to 50% off during Beam's cyber sale. You can grab Dream for just $32.50, but here's the catch. Dream is only available at this price until it sells out. And can I just tell you, their cinnamon cocoa flavor is like Christmas in a cup. You're very welcome. So seriously, think about it. How much would you pay for a truly great night's sleep? With Beam's cyber price, it's just $1.08 per night. Enjoy the show.
Some say that when it comes to Earthshot, maybe not Earthshot, but in his environmental causes in general, that he has to be careful that he doesn't linger in political territory. I haven't seen him cross that line. Have you?
I don't think so. I think the closest he came to people saying, "Ooh, that's a bit on the knuckle," was a speech or a statement he released last year about the war in Gaza.
Yes, yeah.
And actually, if you look back through line by line, there's nothing really controversial in it. Mm-hmm. The fact that he was saying anything at all at that stage was perhaps the controversial thing. Now, I think he has been quite careful in saying that his support is with the people on the ground who are trying to help people, the humanitarians, the first responders. Of course, he was one when he was an air ambulance helicopter pilot, being the first person on the scene of something dreadful happening. He's been in the military, and I think his response is very much to kind of protect those people on the ground who are just trying to help people in crisis. So that's not controversial, but I'm sure there's lots more he would like to say politically, but he knows that perhaps he can't.
Right.
But I think he knows what his role is. He's very careful about where the line is, and he's not prepared or interested in overstepping the mark. What he thinks his role is to be a convener, like his father, to bring people together around the table. And as you said, the celebrities who want to meet him, the world leaders who want to meet him, we've seen President Trump.
Right.
He's thrilled to meet Prince William.
He's
a big fan.
Yeah.
So if William can get people around the table, I think he thinks job done. He doesn't then have to lecture them on what they need to do or what they need to say, but he can get people to talk to each other. And I think he recognises that's his superpower.
That's so true, because when it comes to just his homeless initiative, he never says, "I'm the expert." He always says, "Here are the team of people that I'm so lucky that have congregated around me, and I'm going to let them figure it out." So
it brings us back to our original conversation, doesn't it, about him not wanting to be the star of the show.
Yes,
really.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate, because I still have my YM magazine with his face on it. Iconic. So you captured the king leading the country in 2 minutes of silence at the Cenotaph for the National Service of Remembrance. How important is this visual every year? I mean, it was gorgeous. And what's it like to be there?
Well, I got back late from Brazil on the Saturday night, and then had to get up very early on the Sunday to get back through security and go to the Cenotaph for this. But it was absolutely worth it, because it is a moment. It's one of the highlights of the year in terms of the things that you have to go to as a member of the royal family. It means so much for them to be there, and there had to be something extraordinary happening for them not to be present there. I mean, Princess Anne wasn't there because she was away in Australia doing her own commemorations there and on official business. We had the Princess of Wales joining the Queen, from the balcony, and then we had the King and Prince William and Duke of Edinburgh down below. But it was a stunning day, a clear autumn day, blue skies, sunshine. We were very lucky. And the trees just sort of molting, the leaves just sort of falling down. It was very evocative, and the massed bands from the military, obviously playing music. The national anthem was sung. There is a splendour in it and a dignity in it that I think is so important, lest we forget. Mm-hmm. Let's not forget as well that this is one of the few years where we're going to have quite so many Second World War veterans with us. We had about 20 there, 16 of whom were aged 101.
Unreal.
So, how many more years are we going to have those brilliant veterans with us? I spoke to some of them, and they're, fantastically sprightly and brilliant, and their memories, live on. But and they talk about their comrades as well. But I think the duty now is to continue that story. But the whole event is so special. And it's done so brilliantly well. And they lay wreaths, of course, which then stay by the Cenotaph for people to come and look at. And then they march down to Horse Guards, where this year the Duke of Edinburgh took the salute. It changes every year, a different member of the royal family doing that. And then afterwards they congregate in a Horse Guards parade for pictures, and you can chat to the veterans. And it's really a very special, very, a sense of unity among the veterans and the public and the country, really.
I wish that I could come up with anything I could compare that to in the United States, but there might be something that's picked up by 2 or 3 of the cable news broadcasters, but rarely does everyone stop and just take a moment to respect and honor the brave. We're a very patriotic country, but it does seem like the importance of the family's presence, it truly elevates it for everyone, that they're there and that it's so meaningful to them as well.
Absolutely. That is a crucial part of what the royal family is here to do in Britain, is to cement the country together on moments like that and to lead the country. I said that he led the country in 2 minute silence, and I mean that very sincerely, that he does. His presence there as monarch is guiding everybody in that moment of reflection. And it's so crucial. There were other events during the week. So Prince William recorded a video which was played out to schools around the country about the importance of wearing a poppy, as we do here, to remember those who've given their lives in sacrifice, those who continue to serve as well. And I think it's really important, and it strikes at the heart of what the royal family is all about and what they do and why they're so necessary, many would say.
Yeah, it just reminds us that it's always about someone else. It's always about elevating a cause, or reminding us of people that have sacrificed beyond. I think that I get so upset when I hear about the finances or how privileged their lives are. I know you saw the headlines this week about how their lives are a living hell was the headline. And the reality is, I'm sure sometimes it is. You're on a hospital staircase hours, if maybe you're lucky, 24 hours after giving birth. You can't just decide you're going to go grocery shopping. And if you do, you've got a team of security people know. I imagine you can't do the typical things you and I would, but you can't run into Starbucks and grab a coffee.
They have tremendous privilege, for sure. They really do. And I think the finances are really important to question, because that is public money that could be spent elsewhere. So I think, and the King is very mindful of that. I think he knows that, particularly when people are feeling cash strapped themselves and don't have much cash to spend on their own family, that he needs to be sure that the money is being spent in the right way. But you could sit here and put millions and millions of pounds or dollars on the table to get me to trade places with one of them, and I don't think I would do that.
No.
And it sounds like you wouldn't either.
Yeah, no, the idea of being under that microscope, and especially the women, the women in the British royal family, I feel, there were that, I think it was this time last year where that, I wish I could remember her name, but I'm almost glad I can't remember her name. She was a Big Brother contestant that said something critical about the way Catherine looked. And I remember being like, she's been going through chemotherapy. Why would
And are we still
comment
doing
on-
that? Are we still
Yeah.
talking about what women look like and
Yeah.
not what they have to say or contribute to the world?
Exactly.
I think, obviously people are going to look at somebody's appearance, but I don't think it's really appropriate
And
to do
why are we
that.
so
I feel like,
critical
come on,
of-
it's 2025.
Thank
let's,
you.
Let's
And-
get beyond this.
and you and I wouldn't comment on the way, except to say he's incredibly handsome, but we wouldn't comment on Prince William.
Your words, not mine.
Yeah. We wouldn't comment on Prince William. So, but I do think that because my beat is Harry and Meghan, I really love watching your coverage of the royal family, especially in a week like this, because I think my point is that they seem so selfless and that they seem driven by something bigger than themselves. They all have an objective that is not, it doesn't feel superficial, whether it's Earthshot or Homewards or the early years. It seems like every single thing they do, and every time we see them, there's a bigger point. There's a higher purpose to that. And it's not just getting papped to sell a $64 candle or something. And so that was my point. You're right about the finances. I don't have to pay taxes, so I'm probably not the right person to judge about the royal family's taxes. So take her word, not mine.
No, but you make an interesting point. I mean, Harry and Meghan have moved into the realm of celebrity now. I mean, that's a completely different realm. It's not working members of the royal family anymore.
But still insisting on using the titles. And I think in America, there is no distinction. If you insist that we refer to you as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, perception is reality. And
Right.
so we, despite the fact that there are tabloids that say you're no longer in contact with your brother, if you're still using a name gifted to you by this family and you still have some perks out in the universe because of your DNA, then it's hard for us to turn the royal category off and to move you into the Kardashian category.
Right. Yeah. They seem to be quite happy to move between the categories.
Oh, amen. Is that not the truth? Depending on who they're in front of. Yeah, so before we move on to Harry and Meghan, because I do have a question to ask you about Harry and Meghan, I love this video you have of Queen Camilla, and this is at Buckingham Palace. She's celebrating English National Ballet's, how many years? Is it 75?
75 years.
75
yeah.
years. And it's just fun to see her. She's kind of talking. I don't know if they're friends or if they're just acquaintances, but she's very animated. And I wondered if you get the sense that the Queen loves her job, because I've seen that over the last few years. Like William, I felt like she was shy and didn't necessarily like the attention, but she seems very happy and comfortable lately.
She is a woman who's very comfortable in her own skin, and also of an age where she's sort of like, take me or leave me, I think. She wants to do a good job, obviously, and I think that probably must make her nervous at times. But by and large, what she loves is she's very gregarious. She loves chatting to people. So she was speaking to Arlene Phillips, who was on Strictly Come Dancing, and she was speaking to Angela Rippon, who's a very famous broadcaster, presenter and dancer here. And it was like meeting up with old chums, and she was straight back away saying to Angela Rippon, "You're the one who got me into ballet," because she does Silver Swans, which is ballet for older folk. So the Queen still does that. And this engagement yesterday at Buckingham Palace, which was in the centre room of the palace, which actually looks out over the Mall, over the Victoria Memorial. And I think this is a great example of members of the royal family doing engagements that tally with their interests, because she was so moved. We had a ballerina come in and perform the Dying Swan
Was that
dance.
woman 8 feet tall? She looked
She's taller than me, and I'm quite tall.
Yeah, she was so tall in the videos.
She is incredible. And actually, she was there. I went with the Queen last year. The Queen only became a patron of English National Ballet last year and went to their new headquarters, which is in East London. And that dancer was there last time as well and danced for the Queen. Again, she is incredible. She's brilliant. And she said, look, I've danced all around the world, but I've never danced in a palace. And she was on this carpet as well, a kind of a very ornate rug in the palace, and did very well in quite a confined space. Camilla was very, very moved by the whole thing. She was presented with some pointe shoes, ballet shoes, and she sort of joked, I'll make everyone jealous when I put these on. And she was a good. Camilla is a good sport. She gets involved. She always has a laugh. She always has a smile on her face. And does it very well, I think. But she does love meeting people. She loves chatting.
That's so sweet.
So I think, she was having a great time.
I'd love to know what books the palace suggests don't go on her reading list. Is there something a little spicy that we need that we need to know about? Does she love Twilight? Because I do.
Oh, she might do. I had a magazine piece at the end of last year in the Times, and it was all about the year that they had and things like that. And the most fun fact for me was that she had loved Jilly Cooper's Riders, which is, obviously Jilly Cooper sadly died this year, and she was a friend of the Queen's. But that's the sort of thing that Camilla loves. She's a little bit naughty.
I love that.
She's funny, and she loved the TV adaptation, which, my goodness, was not for the faint-hearted. There were a few sex scenes in there. So she loved watching that TV series, apparently.
I'm living for this information.
But she does like really high literature as well. She genuinely loves to read. And again, she does a lot of the things that interest her through literacy programs. And you can just tell she's so switched on. It's something she really is passionate about.
Can you tell me about the picture you took of Arthur Edwards talking to the Princess of Wales?
Arthur Edwards is such a legend. He's a Sun photographer. I love him dearly. And they all love Arthur. Yeah. So if you're travelling on a plane with the royal family, they'll come back and speak to Arthur first before they speak to anybody else. He gets a special mug. I don't know if you know this. When he goes on one of the royal jets, they bring him tea in a special Union Jack mug.
Diva.
Yeah. He has earned his stripes. And, he's joking to Kate about her hat blowing away. And she said, oh my gosh, I really had to hold on to it at one point. But then she says, how are you? They have such a soft spot for Arthur.
Oh, I think we all do.
Yeah. And and it also, a bit like a member of the royal family, he has no retirement date. He's going strong in his 80s.
A stallion.
And he's fantastic, so it's really nice. It's always really nice to see those exchanges between him and members of the royal family.
Well, it's the cutest picture, and I hope we have your permission to share it.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. All right, Kate Mansey, how can people keep up with you? Because you're a podcaster. You're a podcaster,
you can listen to my
writer.
podcast, The Royals with Kate and Roya. You can listen to my... please do check out my Instagram, which is at Kate Mansey Writes.
Yes.
And I'm on, I don't know, X, or used to be Twitter, whatever it's called.
You're on all the things.
I'm on the things.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for your time
you.
today. I
It's
love
really
catching
nice
up
to
with
see
you.
Yeah.
All right, agree with us, disagree with us. Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Thanks so much for watching.